Well, good evening, everybody. And I hope that you did get a drink from Tito's, this wonderful sponsor of FAAAC. Did you get that, Drew? FAAAC, Tito's. Anyway, I want to welcome all of you beautiful people here today. My sisters, I'm happy that you are here. I'm going to do a quick bio on each and every one of you. And I'm going to start with Sabrina. Sabrina White is currently teaching art at Gilbert High School and holds an undergraduate degree in studio art from Columbia College and a master's degree in higher education administration and a second master's in educational administration. Her work has been featured throughout North and South Carolina, with most recently showing the popular art field competition held yearly in Florence, South Carolina. Sabrina's work explores Black identity, stories, and ancestral themes through mixed media, drawing mediums that center the figure and the portrait. Welcome, Sabrina. C. Scott Fitz, my homie, currently works at the South Carolina Arts Commission as the commission's artist, is this right? Artist Development Director. Scott Fitz comes from Charlotte, where she was creative director and founding staff at McColl Center for Art and Innovation. She established an international residency program for North Carolina artists, curated exhibitions, developed the Artist in Resident program, and built the Education Outreach and Artist Services programs. In addition, Scott Fitz partnered with colleges and universities in both Carolinas, Charlotte, Mecklenburg schools, and others to develop and fund residencies and public art commissions. She taught at Central Piedmont Community College and served on selection panels for the National Endowment for the Arts, among others. An artist herself, she has exhibited throughout the Southeast, and her work is held in public and private collections in the United States, Japan, and the UK. She holds a Master's of Fine Arts from Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore. Welcome, C. Cameron Alexander is a self-taught artist from Charleston, South Carolina. They explore the ramifications of Black subjugation and the utopian potential of Afrofuturism through the mediums of oil painting, wood carving, and cyanotype. Okay. They are interested in the annals of the future, how the process of creation will evolve over time, and their place within this ongoing evolution. While paying homage to the bond of family, they also strive to elucidate the singularity and distinctiveness of the individual, what it is to be Black, what it is to be queer, what it is to be gender non-conforming, and more importantly, are we alone in our distinctness? Their art is a simulation in which anything is possible and specification is the norm. That's right. Cameron Alexander has exhibited at Nephilabada 2020 and Public Works Spark 2020 in Charleston, South Carolina. Welcome, Cameron. Roni Henderson-Day's practice centers around movements of the human spirit between phases. That's the one part I remember looking you up, and I said, that is righteous. I am drawn to life's initiations, birth, coming of age, leaving the body, rises and falls, and the in-between. Her primary discipline is film, and within this framework, there is also still photography, performance, sculpture, Black cosmetology, and is that cosmetology? Okay. And beauty as ritual and the Black body in motion. Central to our own stories, alive and yet changing. Often, Roni's works are a means to reanimate and amplify the breakthrough moments in life in hopes of learning something about her own self and more about the world. Collaboration is central to her work and is ever expanding by working with brilliant artists. Roni's films have screened in museums, galleries, and film festivals and as outdoor projections. And she says she's currently developing performance work with her husband. What's your husband's name? Cedric. Cedric, is that his name? Oh, Moja. There you go, Cedric. Entitled Black Love is Revolutionary. And she holds, I like that. Black Love is Revolutionary. And she holds degrees from Savannah College of Art and Design and Clark Atlanta University. Okay, welcome, Roni.
Thank you. The English teacher in you is going crazy about the changes in.
It's okay. I'm good. I'm good.
I was on one that day.
Right. I was gonna pencil stuff in, but that's all right. This is wonderful. I'm excited. I want to give you each a moment to actually tell me a little bit about your style of art. What is your style of art?
Hello, everyone. I work primarily in mixed media. Right now, I'm dealing with a lot of collage and charcoal and oil paintings. Anyone who's known me for the last 20 or so years, charcoal has been my primary medium. It's what I love, and I've always done portraits. So that's why center on, that's what my work will always primarily contain. Oil portrait or oil paintings. That was the first type of painting I learned when I was about 16. And it's just always continued, even as everything that I've learned and gathered over the years, I've added to. And what was the next part of that? You just wanted to know more about our medium?
Yeah, just wanted to know more about your medium.
Okay. And primarily, you'll see a lot of my work, I will use dictionary pages. And I primarily use those because it's twofold. On one end, it is the stories of our ancestors. That's something that's always remained within my work, even from when I was younger. It's something that I've always explored. I was fortunate enough, and my children were fortunate enough to get to know my great aunt, their great great aunt, and a few other family members are like my uncle, that's their great uncles now, and they're up in age, but they get to go down to the low country. They get to hear these stories and everything firsthand, and they know. So this is my way of trying to pass on those stories as well. Just memories and different things. The second part of why I use dictionary pages, that's a nod back to when I was 9 years old, and I decided I wanted to draw and be an artist. And all I had at home was this dictionary that had these intricate little drawings in them. And every night before I went to bed, I would draw one, and I would continue drawing that same picture until I perfected it. And then I would go to the next one. And then when I moved on from that dictionary, I started drawing from life. I started drawing my hands, and I just kind of grew from there. And it had the addition of also reading the dictionary at the same time. So my vocabulary got to grow from there. And it's just around 2019 when I started exploring it, I'm like, this is a great way to kind of pay homage to a part of who I am while still exploring the stories of my ancestors, the words that were never spoken to me, but I can somehow give voice to them.
Hello, everyone. Up until a few years ago, my work has been primarily installation art and performance. But my background is in really formal portrait painting. Over the last few years, I've started to return to my roots as a portrait artist, but this time I'm focusing on collage and mixed media collage and also poetry. So for the first time in I guess 10 or 15 years, I've finally been able to say that I'm a visual artist and I'm also a poet. And the poetry is what inspires the work. A lot of visual artists will do drawings, and then from the drawing, then the painting comes or the sculpture. But for me, it's the word. It starts with the written word, which a lot of times comes from dreams and really kind of crazy, vivid dreams that I create poetry from, and then out of that poetry comes the image. The mixed media pieces that you see in the exhibition are, some of them are digitally altered and then printed on canvas with archival ink and then collaged over, painted over, sewn into, and that's where I am right now.
Hello? It's on? Okay. I guess I started off getting back into art as a form of rebellion.
No, you. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, when I first started getting back into art, around 19 years old, it was sort of a form of rebellion. So I would be in class, not paying attention, just doodling. And it was me shutting myself off and going inside of myself. And I would explore that space through different mediums. So painting, block printing, charcoal, really in love with that. And the pieces that I've been working on recently, like are inspired by my dreams in the inner world. I noticed that I was going to the same places a lot of the times. And through some people that I met from art talks and stuff, they introduced me to West African cultures and religions. And there I started to notice that the mythology there was similar to what I was seeing inside of my dreams. So the collection that I'm working on right now, it's a block print series, and it's recalling those dreams and connecting them to my history and our culture. Yeah.
This seems to be the good mic. Hi, everybody. My name is Roni. I guess my style would be freestyle in a way, just because it seems as though it's like a path and you find yourself kind of arriving at stories that need to be told, being visited by stories that need to be told. And so in this day and time, though I have scripts that are waiting for me to make, the work that kind of gets made rushes to the front in dreams, like you all said as well, and or through circumstance. A lot of my works recently, I always end up serving the ancestors, and I think I'm thankful for that. My day work as a teacher, I actually consider a large part of my art. What little I have left to give it, I'm going to give it. But to see that kind of like to awaken this idea of empowering people to tell their view of their stories and tell and utilize their voice. I teach film and photography. So that art has been really something that has fed me for a long time. And it's really how I run my sets as a filmmaker. I look at it as a collaboration, and that we're all serving the story and bringing what we have to it. And so that's kind of my approach. The still photography, gets made often. It's a strange thing. Sometimes people come, wanting to capture a moment that is quite vulnerable, and particularly the pieces that are in this show. Obviously, photographers shoot a lot of maternity things, but I don't think of myself as the maternity photographer that you go to that's all like glammed up. It's more like, where are you and what do you need to push through this ring of fire you're about to face? And so there was this whole stint where I was kind of documenting and really nurturing broken-hearted mothers. And then I did experience that myself as well. And so I felt like there was something that I had to offer in that space. So yeah, it's just another initiation that some of us choose to go through in life. And so a lot of my work definitely deals with that, as well as the outgoing or incoming homegoings. Right. So that's me.
Talking about life. And let me ask you all, who inspired you? Who is your inspiration when it comes to art? Who influenced you? Who do you look up to as maybe a muse?
Check.
Okay.
That's quite a list.
Pick, you don't have to do them all.
Okay. From when I was younger, I would definitely have to say there's this artist. He lived in Colombia years ago in the 70s. And he worked in the malls. He was a portrait artist, John Cassoni. And through happenstance, he ended up in my little hometown of Estill, South Carolina. And I ended up meeting him between my junior and senior year of high school. And I spent the entire summer with him, 6 days a week. So Sundays, I belonged to my mom in church. And 6 to 8 hours a day. And all I did was draw. I drew still lifes. And I asked him at one point, when am I going to draw a portrait? He's just like, you're not going to draw a portrait. You're going to draw still lifes. And when I got through drawing still lifes, he moved me on to painting still lifes in oils. He's how I learned how to oil paint. And he taught me so much that I still use today with my students. He gave me this whole other perspective on art. And I still have my sketchbook from that time. And from the beginning to the end of that summer, it's like 2 different artists. I grew so much in such a short period of time. So he was definitely an inspiration to me. And I caught up with him around 2008 because I was around 1999. And he was all the way, I searched for him, found him all the way in New Mexico. And we stayed in contact until around 2011 when those snowstorms came through. And the last I heard, he had passed away in 2013. But he was one of those people who would just pop in and out just periodically. And I know people around town who still knew him, and they're just like, we like to think of him that way. Like he'll just pop back up one day, and then it's easier to take in a way. Another inspiration of mine, Steve Nevitt. You guys might know him as the art professor at Columbia College. I've known him since I was 15. He auditioned me for the governor's school, which is how I first met him. And I went to Columbia College because of him. It's just, like when you're younger, I had different plans. I literally contacted Rutgers because I was accepted there and told them, no, I'm not going there again. And I called Mr. Nevitt. I'm like, can I come to Columbia College? And this was in January of the year I was graduating. And back then, by January 15th, you had to have everything in. And this is the beginning of January. He's just like, yes, put your stuff in. Yeah. And then that was it. I was on my way. And he also does portraiture and everything. And yes, when, like I said, even though I was young, I just knew where I had to be and where I belonged at that time. And as far as inspirations, non-art inspirations, definitely my family. I grew up thinking I was an anomaly because no one else did art. It was like I was the only one, and everyone did music. I did music. I was a musician. I played the piano. I sung. But then I did art. went on, when my father passed away in 2008, then everyone told me he was an artist. And I'm like, well, how come he didn't tell me? I'm like, how come no one told me? And I wanted to know, where else did this come from? And I learned later in life, gosh, they're great at keeping secrets. I found out that I was related to a family in my part of town that I didn't know I was related to on my father's side, and they're all artists. It's like, I knew it came from somewhere. So.
I've always known that I was an artist from the time that I was maybe around 6 or so. My parents always took me to the Detroit Institute of Arts. And we went through a period pretty early on where the instructors, my teachers at school were saying that Cecilia, C is short for Cecilia, shows some sort of talent for art. They're telling my parents, and my parents are saying, she's 6, 7 years old. Maybe not. But at some point, I think when I was around 8 years old, they decided that they were going to give me private lessons. And there's an artist in Detroit, you may know him, Charles McGee. He focuses on murals at the moment, but he was a portrait painter. He must be around 95 now. But they enrolled me in private classes with Charles McGee when I was 8 years old. And I studied with him up until got to high school. And so I would say that Charles McGee was definitely my inspiration. And when I say that I've always known I was an artist, what I should say is that I saw other people, adults, drawing and painting, and they called themselves artists. And I thought, well, that's what I do, so I must be an artist too.
Oh, man. I would have to say my grandmother is my first inspiration. She grew up in Atlanta and was one of the first Black graphic designers there. And she would always take us to exhibitions and historical sites. And it was really important for us to just know about our history and our culture. Outside of my grandmother, I would say Kara Walker, Elizabeth Catlett, Jean-Michel Basquiat. When I first started getting back into art, seeing his pieces made me feel seen. And I just always appreciate that. And I get a lot of my inspiration from the internet, the fact that we can see so many different people's art from across the world. It's just so many different people, but those are definitely my top 3 or top 4.
I would have to say that, when I pray about my future, I want to be the Toni Morrison of film. But it's a high goal, honey. It's a high goal. I got a long way to go. First, I need to get up in the morning and do as Toni did. So Toni Morrison would be, I guess, Toni Morrison gave language to visions. I feel like it was like, it made it make sense. But I come from storytellers, and they range from, how grandmother tells a story and it's mild. For instance, the great grand so-and-so whose feet were white. And then you come to learn later that they say, he show up and we'd get his robe and we'd just stare at his feet because they were white. That's what you learn when you're this age. Then as you get older, you get more tea. We used to follow him into town to his store. He owned a store. You had an ancestor who owned a store. Okay, did anybody know that you were his grandchildren? No, they didn't. He was passing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so it's like you come from people and she's telling the story over and over and adding details as you get older and able to handle it. And then you come to my father, who is my favorite storyteller in the world. And his exaggerations border on straight lie. But I mean, you know, you want to hear that story again so you can see what flair he's going to put on it. And I speak about him in the present tense forever because his stories live in me. So my mother was actually a painter, and I was really frustrated by not being able to draw straight lines as a child or being able to draw what I saw in my head. And there was a whole complex that I had created around not being able to express what I saw. And it wasn't until I was an English teacher in a department with unopened cameras that I realized what my medium was. I took it home and I'm like, oh, this is my way to see or to express what's in my mind, and to capture my awe about God's creation. So I would say Tony, Grandma, Pops, and Mom.
Those are good. All those are really, really good. See, of course, pulled from my questions, even though I don't have them written down, because I was going to ask about when did you realize that you were an artist? And sometimes you don't. And late until later in life, and it seems like I was in the womb, you know, right, drawing, you know.
I am that I am.
Yeah, you know, and so that also says that there's been encouragement along the way for you all, but a lot of times there's no encouragement when it comes to an artist. And it seems like you had strength in your family, and that's something positive right there. And so one of the things that I do is I do a presentation of talking about the Black artists that exist and how our children aren't able to see those Black artists or know those Black artists. You know, I remember going to the Detroit Institute of Art as a child because we did those tours. And, you know, it wasn't that I didn't see Black faces because I had Black faces in the home. I had Black books, I had Black toys, you know, but for many children, they don't have that. So how would you introduce your art to children? And I know that's a deep question. For two of you, I think you all are teaching art to children, right? Mm-hmm. So what is your priority to children? Because especially for Black children, the reflection of having art in front of them that looks like them, a lot of times is not there. Anyone?
I'll kind of, because when you were talking about why didn't anybody tell me that they were artists? Because, I mean, it's elite in a way. I mean, we might do a lot of things, but how do you provide for your family? Mm-hmm. Like, those are the things that are central and respected a lot of times in our community, which, you know, totally understood. Mm-hmm. I have kids that are like, I want to be a photographer, but mom is not sending me to college to do that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I feel that. You keep shooting, you keep studying, and you do what you need to do for your life, you know. Our 7-year-old sounds just like you. Like, she is already clear because she grows up around it. So I think the priority is that if you don't do it, take them around somebody who does. Yes. You know, my 23-year-old, I think, is still afraid to fully commit to an art lifestyle because she was raised with me as a struggling artist. And so she has this thing in her, well, she'll create. She never needs you to see her sketchbook. And she actually showed right here in the community gallery to great success. But it's just like, I remember the days where you were in film school and we didn't have, you know, this or that. So she's more focused on, and I thought just the opposite. I said, I want you to see me pursue my dream so that you won't be afraid to do it. Right. So we'll see. She's still paying me. So
that's what counts, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing that I would say to children who obviously are artists, whatever their medium of choice is that you can run, but you can't hide. If this is who you are, you can, and I'm saying this from my own experience, if this is who you are at your core, then you can go over here and do this thing and this thing and this other thing. Mm-hmm. But if your soul is an artist, it's going to come out. It can either come out in a graceful, elegant way, or it's going to be ugly. But it's going to have to come out because ultimately you are who you are, and you will get to a point where you have to be true to yourself.
All right. As an art teacher, is something I get to do on a daily basis. When I taught in Charlotte, it was very easy. With the school that I was at, it was majority Black, and just being able to have my curriculum and to set it up where I can introduce these students to Black artists, just so they can just see, and they were engaged. They loved to see it. And they loved the fact that not only was I able to teach them art, I was an artist myself. So I could just get in there and I could just do it. I would draw them. No one's ever really done that for a lot of them before. And I remember I was going to be out for a little bit. So I actually, and then throughout the rest of the year, I started making bookmarks and coloring pages that I designed. And you know, they were Black images, Black families. I'd have things on them like to be young, gifted, and Black. And they loved these. And I would come back and they would have colored them. They would have showed me. And this was middle school, you know, and it struck a chord with them. And I continue that where I am now. I have to be a lot more diverse because it's a lot more diverse than where I taught before. But I still get to do that. I still get to introduce them. I still get to be who I am. And the students I am able to reach, you know, I'm working with a student right now, and you know, he gets a little frustrated sometimes. I'm like, listen, you have talent, you have ability. Don't second guess yourself. How would you know if something works if you don't try? Take that risk. And I think that's the number one thing that we can tell young people. Take that risk. Don't hold back. Don't be afraid of what others would think. Don't be afraid of failure. Just go for it.
I would have to agree as far as if you are an artist and it's who you are at your core, it has to come out whether or not it's beautiful or it's ugly. And what I say to kids or anyone really when they're getting into art, people tend to get frustrated with themselves because it doesn't come out how they envision it in their mind or whatever their frustration is. And you have to allow yourself the space to mess up or for happy accidents to happen. And it's really important to speak into that part of young artists because a lot of kids I would see in school and even myself would get discouraged from teachers that didn't understand the spirituality of being an artist. And it's not always a technical thing. Like it's a source to express yourself ultimately. And I would just say speaking to that part of the child and letting them see themselves and show them that they can do it. Yeah.
Very good. Milana Karenga, who is the founder and the creator of Kwanzaa, he said that we don't create art for art's sake. We must create art for power, empowerment for Blackness. If you're going to create and paint a bowl of fruit, make sure you know that fruit is for the guerrillas who are revolutionary. They're going out there to empower us. When I think about many times, like with Langston Hughes, and regarding the Black artist, or are you just an artist? When I think about when we talk about our art, and you all have basically all said the same thing, are you always a Black artist, or are you an artist And are you doing it for the ancestors, or are you doing it for contemporary sale?
Contemporary sale.
Answer? I do it for the ancestors. Like my sole purpose in creating what I create is as an offering. Either I am working something out emotionally within myself, or I am making an offering and speaking for the people that cannot no longer speak. And I think it's really important to just be a vessel. And yeah, here for the people always.
Sounds really good.
Definitely for the ancestors. Sure, I have the opportunities out there to go and do a lot. But as my daughter here can attest, I have a house full of art that no one's laid eyes on before but the people in my house. I'm going to make it no matter what. I have to. I can't explain it. I've gone periods where, for whatever reason, stress or whatnot, I haven't made art, and that just has made things worse. When I start making time for my practice, it's such a core of who I am. I just have to do it. And that's where I am now. When I'm working with my students, I do every project with them. I don't give them a project that I myself can't be invested in, can't put a little bit of myself into. That's where I am.
I'm creating work to celebrate Black joy and Black beauty. And I would say, I don't know if I've ever thought about it in terms of whether I'm doing this for the ancestors, but I do know that I am really intentionally, with every collage that I create, that's what it's about. Because and I've said this in an interview, I think with Drew, is like, I'm tired of y'all. Like and when I say I'm tired of y'all, I'm tired of all of the ugly in the world and what gets pushed out and what occupies people's minds and what is put on us is all of everything that is wrong with humanity and just the world in general. And I just want some peace of mind. And I'm using what I make to create that, to promote that. If I want peace, if I want beauty, if I want joy, then I'm going to make it, and it will have this ripple effect. Everyone that looks at it, maybe they'll have a smile, maybe it will remind them of something pleasant. But that's where it is for me.
It's interesting. I know that there are people who are like, they push back on the label of Black artists. I'm not gonna push back on the label of Black anything. Like, bring it. I love it. It affirms me. So that's that. But that's often an exterior experience, and the making is very much an interior experience. I really am trying to keep from passing on things that are unhealed in my DNA to future generations. So it's in service to the ancestors and myself as a means to, like y'all said, create something beautiful in the future. I'm trying not to hand down my mess. And sometimes the mess that we're holding isn't just our lived mess. It's epigenetics. It's trauma that's in our code. And to do that, you got to get down into that code. And so sometimes the making is about decoding, looking within, figuring out. And so movement is a big part of my work. So that movement is also me trying to move myself through, utilizing the past to move into something else. Commercial sale is interesting because as a video artist, I don't know. I feel like, would I be uncomfortable with some people, certain people owning my work? I'm wondering. It's something I've had to grapple with. Sometimes you go and there are a couple artists I didn't mention, Carrie Mae, bless her, and Radcliffe Bailey. And I remember going to a show at the High for Radcliffe Bailey, and this beautiful piece with all the piano keys and that singular black sparkling head. And I remember just crying at this exhibit, like crying. But when you walk through Radcliffe's exhibit, it's just like, you know, courtesy of. And they're like medicine bags. He's got like juju. It's like, wow, people buy this. And it's literally medicine cabinets. And he's saying like medicine bag number so-and-so. And people own this in their homes. And it's very interesting to me. But when you think about the artist that you want to be, I think about the access, not to places, but more so to like a big space where sunlight comes in, and I have space to move and work and money to hire people to bring their art into it. And so how do you get to that place though without some level of commercial success? And it's a bit of a grapple gang for me. So I'm still, but I don't make it for that. I don't think it will work.